The room was full of laughter and applause as Emeka's retirement gala filled the elegant hall in Abuja. People from all over had come to celebrate his years of hard work and success. But then, something no one expected happened. Emeka suddenly turned to his daughter, Amara, and with a cold, sharp voice, he called her a disgrace to the family. The words hit like a thunderclap. The crowd froze, eyes wide, and an uncomfortable silence took over. Amara stood there, stunned, her heart pounding. She had always worked so hard, dreamed so big, and tried to make her father proud, but now, in front of everyone, she felt invisible and crushed. Her face flushed with shame as whispers started spreading among the guests. Emeka's words weren't just cruel, they cut deep. Amara could feel tears burning behind her eyes, but she forced herself to stay quiet. The room that had once been full of celebration now felt cold and heavy. No one knew what to say. The humiliation was public, painful, and it changed everything. In that moment, Amara's world shattered, and she knew this was just the beginning of a long, hard journey. She left the gala without a word, carrying the weight of her father's insult and a secret promise forming in her heart, a promise to one day prove him wrong, not just for herself but for everyone watching. Amara's legs felt weak as she hurried out of the grand hall, her cheeks wet with tears she could no longer hold back. The noise behind her, the gasps, the whispers, the stunned silence, faded into the background. All she could hear was the pounding of her own heart and the heavy weight of the insult that had just crushed her. For years, she had fought for her father's attention, for his approval, but today, it became clear it was never going to come. His harsh words didn't just sting, they tore open wounds she thought she had hidden deep inside. She remembered all the times she had stayed up late, working on her dreams, hoping one day to make her family proud. Yet, no matter how much she tried, she always felt like a shadow in her father's life, invisible and unimportant. The memory of his cold looks, his sharp criticisms, and the way he dismissed her efforts hit her all at once. She wasn't just embarrassed in front of the crowd, she was broken inside. Every moment of emotional pain she had hidden suddenly felt heavier. She wondered why she had believed things would be different this time. How could the man who raised her say such terrible things? Amara's tears flowed freely now, mixing with the burning sadness that settled deep in her chest. But even through the hurt, a small spark inside refused to die. She knew she couldn't stay in this place, both the hall and the life she had lived. Something inside told her she needed to leave, to find a new path away from the shadow of her father's disappointment. She had to find her own worth because clearly he could not see it. The crowd's shocked faces flashed in her mind as she walked away, feeling both betrayed and alone. But somewhere deep down, beneath the pain, a quiet voice whispered that this moment, as terrible as it was, might be the start of something different. The hurt was real, but it would not be the end of her story. After she escaped the suffocating crowd and slammed the heavy door of her childhood home behind her, Amara found herself alone in the quiet of her small room. The night was dark outside, but inside, the shadows seemed heavier. Her heart ached with the weight of her father's words still ringing in her ears. She sat on the edge of her bed, hands trembling, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to fall again. How could the man she looked up to, the man who was supposed to love her unconditionally, say such cruel things? For so long, she had chased his approval, working late into the night, sacrificing her own happiness to build a future that would make him proud. But today, all of that seemed like a lie. She felt lost and broken, like a flower crushed underfoot. Yet, as the silence wrapped around her, something deep inside began to stir. Between the tears and the pain, a quiet, fierce determination started to grow. She wiped her face and looked into the mirror, searching for the girl she once believed in. In that reflection, she found a spark, a small flame that refused to go out. With a shaky breath, she made a secret promise to herself. She wouldn't let her father's words define her. She would prove him wrong, not just to him, but to the whole world. She promised that one day she would stand tall, proud, and successful, not because she wanted to hurt him, but because she wanted to show herself how strong she could be. It wasn't just about revenge or anger. It was about reclaiming her own story, her own future. Amara knew the road ahead would be difficult. She would face loneliness, struggle, and doubt, but she was ready. That night, under the quiet darkness, she made a vow that she would rise above the pain, the insults, and the broken dreams. She would turn her hurt into power, and no matter what happened, she would never forget this moment, the moment she decided to fight for herself and her worth, even if the whole world, starting with her father, had turned their backs on her. Amara arrived in the new city with nothing but a small suitcase and a heart full of determination. The bright lights and busy streets were nothing like the comfortable life she had known before. Here, she was just another face in the crowd, with no family name or connections to lean on. She found a tiny room in a rundown part of town, far from the elegant halls where she had once been humiliated. The days were hard, filled with challenges she never expected. Money was tight, and sometimes she had to skip meals just to pay rent. She took whatever jobs she could find, cleaning offices, waiting tables, anything that would help her get by. People looked at her with doubt, some even with pity, as if they believed she was doomed to fail. But every night, after the world had gone quiet, Amara would remind herself of the promise she made in that lonely room back home. She wasn't here to stay small or invisible. Slowly, she started learning new skills, reading books on business and leadership whenever she could find time. She met others who believed in hard work and dreams, people who helped her see the possibilities instead of the obstacle. But the path wasn't smooth. There were moments when friends betrayed her, stealing ideas or walking away when she needed support the most. Some people tried to take advantage of her kindness, making her question if trusting others was a mistake. Still, Amara kept pushing forward, learning from each setback and turning every failure into a lesson. She discovered a strength inside herself that she never knew existed, a quiet power born from pain and hope. Slowly but surely, her hard work began to pay off. She started a small business, selling handmade goods online, using the little money she saved. The business grew, and with it, her confidence. Word spread about the quality of her products and her honesty in dealing with customers. She hired a few people who believed in her vision, and together, they worked late into the nights, building something real from nothing. The city that once seemed cold and unwelcoming became a place of opportunity. Amara's story inspired others who faced their own struggles. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving. Her empire was small compared to giants, but it was hers, built on sweat, tears, and an unbreakable will. Through it all, Amara never forgot the hurt that drove her. Instead of letting it break her, she used it as fuel. The pain of being rejected by her family, the loneliness of starting over, the fear of failing. These became the building blocks of her success. Every step forward was a quiet act of rebellion against the past. She wasn't just proving her father wrong anymore, she was proving it to herself and to the world. Her rise was underground, away from the glitz and glamour, but it was unstoppable. And deep down, Amara knew this was only the beginning. After years of building her life far from the shadow of her father, Amara stumbled upon something she never expected, a truth that shook her to the core. While going through old family papers she had secretly collected during a rare visit to her childhood home, she found letters and documents that revealed a hidden side of her father. Emeka, the man who had humiliated her in front of everyone, wasn't just cold and harsh out of cruelty. There were deep wounds behind his bitterness. She learned about struggles and betrayals her father had faced, failures in business, broken promises from people he once trusted, and sacrifices he made that no one knew about. There were stories of hardship and loss that had hardened him, making him distant and difficult, especially toward those he cared about most. But even with these new pieces of the puzzle, Amara didn't feel sorry for him in a way that made her give up on herself. Instead, she felt a strange kind of clarity. Understanding the pain behind his anger didn't make the past easier, but it helped her see why he acted the way he did. It also reminded her that pain doesn't have to control a person's life or define who they are. Amara realized that her father's bitterness had nothing to do with her worth. His anger was his own burden, not a reflection of her value or potential. This knowledge didn't weaken her, it made her stronger. She could finally separate her identity from the shadow of her father's disappointments. It was as if a weight had lifted, giving her the freedom to rise even higher. Instead of being trapped by family secrets or haunted by painful memories, Amara used them as fuel. Every story she uncovered, every hurt she understood, became a reason to push harder, to build a future where she was not defined by the past, but by her own choices and strength. She began to see her journey in a new light, not just as a fight against her father's rejection, but as a path toward healing and empowerment. The secrets she found were painful truths, yes, but they were also lessons about resilience, forgiveness, and the power of knowing yourself. Amara's heart grew with a quiet fire, a mix of sadness and hope that gave her new energy to keep going. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was transforming. The darkness in her family's history became a backdrop for her own story of light and success. It was a reminder that people are more complicated than their worst moments, and that understanding can lead to strength instead of despair. With this newfound wisdom, Amara was ready to face whatever came next. She knew the road ahead might still be hard, but now she carried with her not just ambition, but also compassion for herself, for her father, and for the future she was determined to create. This shocking truth didn't break her, it set her free. Years passed, and Amara's life transformed in ways no one could have imagined. From the small room in a rundown part of the city, she built a business that grew into a powerful empire. Her name, once whispered with doubt and pity, was now spoken with respect and admiration. But despite her success, she kept her story quiet, letting her work speak for itself. Then came the day she returned home. It wasn't with a shout or a grand announcement, but with quiet confidence and a calm that surprised everyone. She arrived at her father's old company headquarters, a place where she had once felt invisible and unworthy. Now she walked through those doors as a woman who had faced every challenge and come out stronger. The whispers started almost immediately. "Is that Amara? She's back?" People who had doubted her, ignored her, or worse, insulted her, stared in disbelief. Amara was different now. She was not just wealthy, she was confident, poised, and in control. Her success was not just about money, it was about the strength she carried inside, the battles she had fought, and the promise she had kept to herself. She didn't need to prove anything with angry words or dramatic gestures. Her presence alone was the statement. As she moved through the crowd at a company event, heads turned and conversations stopped. People who once sneered now wanted to shake her hand, to understand how she had done it. But Amara's eyes were focused on one man, her father. The man who had publicly humiliated her so many years ago now faced a daughter who had risen higher than he ever expected. She wasn't just back. She was ready to reclaim her place in the family and in the business world. The surprise on his face was clear. He had not anticipated this comeback. Amara's return was more than a personal victory. It was a message to everyone who had ever doubted her worth. She had taken the pain of the past and turned it into power. Her story became an inspiration, a reminder that no matter how low life pushes you, with determination and belief in yourself, you can rise again. This moment was not just about winning, it was about healing and proving that true strength comes from inside. Amara had arrived not as the girl her father dismissed, but as a woman who owned her story and her future. The stunning comeback wasn't just about business success. It was about reclaiming respect, dignity, and a place where she belonged all along. The day of her father's farewell event was filled with excitement and celebration. The grand hall was packed with guests, business leaders, family members, and old friends, all gathered to honor Emeka's long career and his retirement. The air was thick with compliments and stories about his achievements. No one expected anything unusual. Amara stood quietly near the back, dressed sharply and carrying herself with calm confidence. Years ago, she had been humiliated by this same man, in front of many of these very people. Tonight, she was here for a very different reason. She watched the speeches and the applause, listening as her father was praised for his work and leadership. Then, as the event moved toward its end, Amara asked to speak. The room quieted down, curiosity filling the air. People wondered what she could possibly say at this moment. With a steady voice, Amara began to share her story, not just of pain and struggle, but of growth and triumph. She spoke about the challenges she had faced after leaving home, the hard work and determination that had built her business from nothing. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for, the moment that stunned the crowd into silence. Amara revealed that she now owned the largest shares of her father's company. The news spread through the room like wildfire. The man who had once publicly humiliated his daughter was suddenly confronted with a new reality, one where he was no longer in control. Emeka's face showed shock and confusion as whispers turned into gasps. He tried to hide his surprise, but the look of defeat was clear to everyone. Amara didn't gloat or mock him. Instead, she spoke with quiet strength about respect and forgiveness. She explained that her intention was not revenge, but reclaiming her rightful place after years of being dismissed and hurt. The public humiliation was undeniable, but Amara carried it with grace. She reminded the guests that respect must be earned, not demanded, and that true power comes from strength of character, not just money or title. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the man who once held so much power was now humbled by his own daughter. Amara had turned the tables without anger or cruelty, proving that sometimes the best payback is quiet success and dignity. The event ended with applause that wasn't just polite, but filled with genuine respect for the woman who had risen above her past and taken control of her future. Amara left the hall that night, knowing she had not only reclaimed what was hers, but had taught everyone a powerful lesson about strength, forgiveness, and self-worth. The room was quiet, filled with people waiting to hear what Amara would say next. After revealing that she now owned the biggest shares in her father's company, all eyes were on her. But instead of anger or revenge, Amara spoke with calm and kindness. She talked about respect, the kind that comes from understanding and valuing others, not from power or money. She said respect is something we earn by how we treat people and how we carry ourselves. Then she spoke about forgiveness. She shared how holding on to anger and pain only keeps us trapped, but forgiving frees us to move forward and live better lives. Most of all, Amara talked about self-worth, how it comes from within, and no one can take it away unless we let them. She told the story of her father's harsh words, the insults that once made her feel small and worthless. But those words did not destroy her. Instead, they became the fuel that pushed her to work harder and believe in herself. Amara's speech wasn't just about her own journey. It was a message for everyone, about rising above pain, about choosing strength and kindness, even when life is hard. The audience listened quietly, many with tears in their eyes. She wasn't just the daughter who had been hurt and rejected. She was a queen, crowned by her courage and her heart. When she finished, the applause was loud and full of respect. In that moment, Amara turned what was once a painful insult into her greatest triumph. She showed everyone that true power comes from owning your story and loving yourself, no matter what anyone else says.